Your game for life has already begun. It's your decision whether or not you want to be a successful student, son, daughter, brother, or sister.
Every one of you can have a Hall of Fame life, whether or not you play football. You can be as great as you want to be. The Hall of Fame is all about integrity, character, and excellence. You have the opportunity to represent yourself that way. You determine your character.
Welcome to a once-in-a-lifetime program, The Heart of a Hall of Famer.
My feelings since notification of my selection have run the length of the emotional spectrum. I've been humbled to realize how important other people have been in my life and the reason that I'm here. I'm proud because I realize what a select group I have now become a part of. I believe firmly that more of us needs to exercise that capacity to do good things. Who knows that the recipient of your kindness may motivate a young person to become a Hall of Fame receiver, or maybe a truly committed school teacher, or maybe a youngster that might want to be a fireman who may at some point have to make the choice of running into a burning skyscraper, or maybe just a young lady who grows up to be the neighborhood Kool-Aid mom. Who knows? But this world needs us to try. Thank you.
All right, and with that, I'd like to welcome everybody to another edition of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Heart of a Hall of Famer series. My name is Jake Ray. I'm going to be moderating the session today live from Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And we are lucky enough today to have Gold Jacket, Hall of Famer, Steelers legendary wide receiver, Mr. John Stallworth with us today, coming to us live from Huntsville, Alabama, and the Huntsville School District. Our mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. And those values that we speak of in our mission are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence. And we're going to focus a lot on those values today and what it means, not only to us here at the Hall of Fame, but to our Hall of Famers, our Gold Jackets, who are part of this great program. Before we get started, and I know you guys are excited to get rolling, but before we get started, I do want to have some few thank yous I want to send out first. First, I'd like to thank our folks at Extreme Networks. Without their help today, this program couldn't happen. They do a lot of great work for us here at the Hall of Fame, and they do a lot of great work for schools and school districts across the country. So we first and foremost want to thank our great partners, Extreme Networks. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers and administrators for allowing their students to come into the program today and listen to what we have to say and talk about the game of football and the important values that the game of football teaches. So thank you, teachers and administrators. Lastly, and probably most importantly, I'd like to thank our students. You know, without the program today, without you guys, it doesn't happen. So there's not every day you guys get a chance to talk to one of the best football players to ever play the game. So I'm excited to see what questions you guys have today, and I'm excited to see how Mr. Stallworth shows you how the game of football impacted his life. So without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Gold Jacket Hall of Famer, Mr. John Stallworth.
Good morning, everyone, and certainly honored to be here, to be a part of this, and right here in Huntsville, Alabama, with the Huntsville High football team right in front of me here. I do recall my years in high school and a time when I was starting to make choices in my life, and choices that unknown to me, choices that would affect my life affect me throughout my life. So we encourage you to make good choices. I'd like, as part of my introductory statement, I'd like to tell you a couple of stories. The first one being a story that was told to me in my early years in Pittsburgh, and it's based in truth, about a tightrope walker by the name of Blondine, who in the late 1890s decided he wanted to walk across Niagara Falls. And on the day that he was going to do that, there were 10,000 cheering spectators on the American side and of the falls, and Blondin started his trek on the Canadian side. And if you ever seen pictures of the falls, there's a lot of water going on, gallons and gallons, millions of gallons of water going on that falls, a lot of mist coming up from that fall. And if you think about this tightrope, water's coming up and settling on the tightrope. Blondin with a long pole that tightrope walkers had during that time, walking across that falls. And I imagine there were some times that he stopped and kind of gathered himself and to get his balance. There was a time maybe he slipped a little bit and got some oohs and ahs from the crowd, but he made it to the other side. And when he got there, those 10,000 folks began to cheer, and they began to chant his name. And he took that in for a while, and he raised his arms and he quieted the crowd, and he said, "I am Blondin. Do you believe in me?" And that chant continued, and with "we believe, we believe, we believe." And Blondin raised his arms again and he quieted that crowd, and he said, "I'm going to walk back across that tightrope. Do you believe I can do that?" And they said, "Yes." He said, "But this time I'm going to carry someone on my shoulders. Do you believe I can do that?" And those 10,000 cheering, chanting spectators, making a verbal commitment, if you will, said nothing. And this went on, the quiet went on for a while, and finally one guy stepped forward and he mounted Blondin's shoulders, and for the next 3.5 hours, they inched their way back across that tightrope. My point here is that those folks making a verbal commitment weren't willing to stand up for that commitment. And I don't believe the commitment, making a commitment demands that every time you make one that you put your life on the line. But we all make them. We make them to our family, we make them to our friends, we make them to ourselves. And I think the folks that are truly successful in this life are the ones that are able to honor those commitments. And we made them all our lives. You might look back on your life and third grade, or you said to someone, "I promise that I will do that." That's a commitment. And the folks that honor those commitments and keep those promises, again, are the ones that's successful in life. And certainly, I think being able to do that has a tremendous effect on your life. It affects the quality of relationships that you have. If you think about your friends and your family, people around you, people that you meet, if they can trust that you're going to do what you say, they look at you a little bit differently. In our pursuit of excellence, we have to make commitments to doing certain things to get there. How we carry ourselves when nobody's watching, our integrity demands on our commitment to certain values in our lives. Commitment, very valuable as you move forward. Make that one of your choices, to be committed in everything that you do. The second story is a sort of a fable. It's about a wise man and a prince in a land long time ago. And in this little village, the prince lived and the wise man lived. And the wise man was much revered by everybody in the village. He'd gather everybody in the village every day at a certain time, and they'd have problems, and he'd help them with their problems. Every day, the prince, being a very jealous type, wanted some of that admiration. So he devised a scheme of how he was going to get some of that, how he was going to discredit the wise man. He was going to dress himself as a beggar and go into the square the next day when the wise man was giving his counsel with a bird in his hand. The bird hidden behind his back. He was going to step up to the wise man and ask him if the bird I have in my hand alive or dead. And if the wise man said that it was alive, then he was going to crush the bird and present a dead bird. If he said it was dead, then he was going to raise it and let it fly free. Either way, according to the prince's plan, either way, the wise man was going to be discredited. Either whatever he answered. So very true to his plan, the next day, he's in the square and the wise man is dispensing his wisdom, and he approaches him dressed as a pauper with the bird behind him, and he asks that question. The wise man, is the bird I have in my hand alive or is it dead? And the wise man pondered for a little bit, and he said, "My son, you're mistaken. The bird you have in your hand is what you make of it. It's what you make of it." And I tell that story because I think that's very much our lives. Our lives are what we make of them. And that's not to diminish the the effect of good relationships in our lives, caring relationships in our lives, our moms, our dads, our family friends that care about us and want to be around us and help us along the way. But I'll submit to you this morning that no matter how badly they want to help you and how much they want to give you, if you're not willing to embrace that, to internalize that, then it's to no good. Our lives are very much what we make of them, and we choose to be excellent in the things that we do. We choose to operate with integrity. Those are the choices that we make, and they are what we make of them. So I submit to all of you this morning is to choose to be committed in the things that you do and the things that you say, and to honor those commitments. Choose to realize that the power of where you go and how you live is what you make of it. It's not where you come from. It's not maybe who's in your family. It's what you make of it. Choose to make the best of all that you do and all that you want to become. It's in your hands. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions, any questions that you might have.
All right, we'll go ahead and start with those. I can't think of a better way to get started than that right there. So we'll go ahead and turn over to the students right there in front of you in Huntsville for the first question.
What are some examples of times that you've had to persevere through adversity?
Certainly, as an athlete, there are times when you're injured that you have to get through that. That you're not doing the things you want to do. You're not participating in the sport that you love. So you have to get through injuries, and it's not always easy to get through that. But I think the thing that jumps to mind more readily than my athletic career is that after playing football, we started a business here in Huntsville, and it was a business not associated with athletics at all. It was a business that provided engineering services to the federal government, and everybody we talked to wanted to talk about football. And I needed to get past that, get through that, to get through how people perceived me as just a jock, and to show them that there was more to me than that. That was a difficult time for me. We were leaving football, and where we had a fairly high profile, and we were now in a profession where we weren't known at all. But to struggle through that was pretty difficult. But that getting through injuries, during the time that we played professionally, I had a brother to pass away. Difficult time to concentrate on what needed to be done and what I needed to do. But we were blessed with, as I mentioned, relationships that helped us to get through that, and we did.
Awesome. Well, now we're going to send it out to our other school here. We have Bridges Elementary tuned in. And before I send it out to them, I'm going to say you're going to like the jersey that this kid has on. So go ahead and ask your question for Mr. Stallworth.
Okay. My question is, what are your feelings about Terry Bradshaw?
I'm sorry, I didn't really hear your question. Could you say it again?
My question is, what are your feelings about Terry Bradshaw?
Terry's an excellent quarterback. He has gotten to be really good on television. He didn't start out that way, but he's gotten to be really good at that. Terry gave our receivers an opportunity to be good, to be great, and he loved throwing the football down the field. I loved catching the football down the field. So we made for a pretty good team there in Pittsburgh, but an excellent leader. Terry's a guy that, if we talk about adversities, went through a pretty heavy time in his life early in his career. Terry was the #1 draft choice coming to Pittsburgh, the #1 overall draft choice coming to Pittsburgh. And his career did not start out with a bang. He struggled through a lot. He got boos and from the crowd. There were times when he was benched over the first part of his career, but he struggled through that. And I think his ability to struggle through that, to persevere through that, is what carried him on through and having a great career and into another career. So I think the world of Terry Bradshaw.
That was a great question. Obviously, a great quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, and it was well deserving on having his bust here in Canton just as well as you do. So, for everybody watching, as well as those students there in front of you, make sure you have those questions prepared. If you're watching on Facebook Live, go ahead and submit those questions as well. We'll be throwing some of those in to the program. But I do have a question. 1974 is a year that probably stands out a lot to you in your career. It was the year where you were drafted. But the Steelers had a pretty good draft that year. They drafted, in 1974, drafted yourself, Lynn Swann, Jack Lambert, and Mike Webster, all within the first 5 rounds. And each one of you guys became a Hall of Famer. So what was it like to start your career out with guys and teammates like that?
Well, let me say that none of us knew we were going to be Hall of Famers when we got there. Things started to happen when we got to Pittsburgh that first year. Jack Lambert was slated to be an outside linebacker, but we had an injury to the starting inside and our middle linebacker, and Lambert took over his place. Lynn and I, neither one of us started our rookie year. Neither did Mike Webster start our rookie year. We all showed in back and forth, in and out of the game. So we didn't know we were going to be Hall of Famers, but we knew that we were all committed to being our best. We knew that when we were on the field and you had to depend on the guy next to you to do his job, that they were going to do their job. Now, that was more than just the 4 of us. That was the entire team, our entire rookie class. But to be able to have that kind of confidence that the person you're playing next to has the same commitment that to be the best as you do means a whole lot. Makes things a lot easier. And makes pulling that load down the road a lot easier to do. And so it was good to have those guys being a part of that.
As I mentioned, we will be inserting some questions from our Facebook Live feed. We have one right here from Marcel. Marcel asks, who was your biggest inspiration throughout your career?
And I know it sounds cliche, but it was, my family. My mom did not want me to play ball. I was a child that her son that was going to be, if there were going to be an injury or someone's going to fall and hurt something, and then she was going to have to run, it was going to be me. So she didn't want me to play. I played anyway, and things started to develop, but my mom was my biggest fan, and seeing her come and to watch me play and to see the smile on her face when we played and I did well made everything great. I had an older brother who was a much better athlete than me, so part of my inspiration from him was to try to prove that I was better than him. So it came from within my family, primarily my mom.
I wouldn't say that's cliche. I would say that you're probably going to hear that more times than not, especially from guys like you are Hall of Famers. So we're going to turn it back over to the students there in Huntsville for our next question.
How do you feel the leadership roles on the football field and in the business world are similar?
I think leadership, whether it's on the football field or business world or wherever, leaders have to be able to convince the folks that they want to follow them to do just that. That they're going to make the good decisions. I think you want people around you to believe that you have their best interests at heart. During my business career, we were able to convince the folks, and being true, convince the folks that around them that whatever happens at work, we want to do the best job. But the most important thing that for them was their family and what was going on at home. And if things were not going well at home, then they were not going to go well at work. So our commitment was to help them put their families first. That helped them to know that we valued them more than just being a number, a football player, an employee. We valued them as being a person, and that value was communicated to them. And now they want to perform. They want to do the best they can for the team. I think that's true of any team, not just in the athletic field or the business area. Wherever you form a team, if the people a part of that team believes that the leadership and believe in each other, that they respect each other and they want the best for each other and they're committed to that, then that's going to be an excellent team. And you know, as you guys start to gel more as a team, let me suggest to you that you embrace that, that you make it known that you want the best for each other. I want you to be the best. We might be playing the same position, but I want you to be the best you can possibly be. And if you start to believe that, and you start to embrace that, then you're going to be better. And if not, and sometimes that maybe doesn't communicate to in terms of your record, but as a group of men working together, as a team working together, then you're going to be better. And that will make life, as you start further down the road in your lives, you're going to be better because of that. You may not know that now, you may not feel that now, but as you grow older, you'll be able to see that and feel that.
Teamwork is just one of those things, one of those life lessons that the game of football teaches, and it's a laundry list. And teamwork kind of maybe just sits at the top of that. The life lessons you learn, the teamwork you learn in the game of football can not only apply to the high school football team that's there in Huntsville, Alabama, but can apply to these Fortune 500 companies who use these lessons to make a better product, whether it be on the field or off the field. So we're going to send it now out to our Bridges Elementary School all the way out in Arizona. So go ahead and ask your question for Mr. Stallworth.
Do you ever feel like if you didn't take any risks in your life, you wouldn't be where you are now?
I'm sorry, I'm not picking your question up. So could you repeat it one more time?
Do you ever feel like if you didn't take any risks in your life, you wouldn't be where you are now?
I'm going to need a little help. What's her question?
She's asking if you didn't take, do you feel like you would be wearing that gold jacket today if you didn't take any risks throughout your life?
Oh, no. I mean, I think taking a risk is part of growing up and part of maturing. You know, there have been any number of times in my life I've been the first to do that in my family. If I was averse to risk, then I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have taken that step to do something a little bit different than my family. Starting a business in an area that was not common to athletes, retiring professional athletes, and starting a business, and it was a risk. We were banking that was going to be successful and was going to be able to provide a place for my family and a livelihood for my family. That was a risk. If you stepping out and doing things a little bit differently, that takes a certain amount of courage, which is one of the attributes of Hall of Famers, and taking that risk and moving forward is the thing that sometimes drives you to the success that you have. And certainly it's true in my case.
Awesome. That was a great question. A couple weeks ago, we had the new induction for the Black College Football Hall of Fame, and we'll get to how you work with that and some of the things you do with them. But you went for your college, you went to Alabama A&M, which is an HBCU or a historically Black college or university. When it came time for the NFL draft, did you feel like you kind of were at a disadvantage because you came for a smaller school, or what was it like to go up against the guys who, like Lynn Swan, who went to a much bigger school? Did you get any extra motivation, or was there a chip on your shoulder going into that time of your career?
Well, coming out of Alabama A&M, and I knew how well I played against teams that we played in our conference. But if you believe the hype that comes from playing at a larger school, you think that schools like USC and University of Alabama and Georgia and other places were bigger schools, so the athletes may be better, and I just didn't know. So yes, the motivation is there to go up to be on the top of your game when you get there, because you know you're going to be competing against these guys. But what I found out once I got there, that they weren't better. That's not to say that they weren't good and they weren't exceptional, but that the talent that I had and what I brought to the table was equal to what they brought to the table. So you get a boost of confidence from doing that. But certainly, I think one of the things that motivated me to do well was that I had people at Alabama A&M, my teammates at A&M, and people, my family, and people in Huntsville, Alabama, looking And I wanted to show them and being a role model in that regard that we can do this. We can be as good as anybody. It's not necessarily where you went to school, it's what you bring to the table when you get there. And that's not just from an athletic standpoint, that's from a business standpoint. You know, we got our degrees from Alabama A&M. We started a company that grew to be a very successful company with the education that was provided us and that we took advantage of in Alabama A&M. So we can be, from an educational standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, we can be as good as anybody.
So I mentioned the Black College Football Hall of Fame, and you actually sit on the advisory board of the Black College Football Hall of Fame. So can you talk a little bit about what your role is as part of that advisory board? And then you just had the new class inducted, the class of 2019. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be a part of all those big events down there in Atlanta?
Well, in my role as an advisor, I think it's to promote Black college athletics. I think there's a place for that for Black college football and small college football overall, but Black college football right now. You know, I came out of high school, and I mentioned earlier that we won one game my junior year and one game my senior year, so we didn't have a very good football team. I got an opportunity to play football at Alabama A&M. It was the only offer that I got. Had it not been for Alabama A&M, I don't play professional football. I don't go to the Hall of Fame. I don't get the degree that I got and start a business and provide income, help to provide income for folks and their families. So Alabama A&M was key. But Alabama A&M for me was the garden that I grew best in. Some plants grow good in a lot of sunshine. Some plants grow good when there's a lot of moisture. Some plants grow good in the shade. Alabama A&M was the garden, was the soil that I needed to be in to be the best I could possibly be. I'm not sure that would have happened at a larger school. I got the opportunity to grow and to mature at Alabama A&M. So, you know, that's what I'm about. That's what we participate in, and why we participate in the Black College Hall of Fame, to continue along that road, because I do believe that that kids who can mature and be their best in that particular garden, not just Alabama A&M, but historically Black College all around.
Awesome. So we're going to head in and we'll move along here. We'll turn it over to those students right there in front of you in Huntsville for the next question.
As a child, what events in your life do you believe helped you shape into the man you are today?
When I was, and we were talking earlier about this, when I was in the third grade, I had a virus, and the virus paralyzed me for about a month. And we did not know what it was. And it was a time when polio was still an issue in the lives of our young people. And so I'm paralyzed. I'm in the hospital for most of that time, and we don't know what's going on. And I don't really realize the severity of what's going on. I'm thinking it's probably temporary. I think my mom and my dad were thinking a lot deeper about that than I was. I couldn't walk, I couldn't run, and it was during the summer, and that was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be outside. I wanted to be running and ripping with my pals, my buddies, and I couldn't do that. And so in my mind, and thinking that through and going through that month, I'm thinking, Lord, if I can get back out and do that and run with my friends, then I'm not going to ever give that up. And I'm going to always take joy in doing that. We got through that. It was ruled a virus. It was not polio. And I got slowly back to being able to run and do the things I love to do. And the feeling I had, the desire that developed from going through that and getting to the point where I could get back out and do the things that I love to do, has been a continuing motivation for me, and getting through injuries and getting through difficult times. difficult times are not times that are going to last forever, that you can work your way through that. And so I look back on that, and I'm tremendously motivated by that particular time in my life.
All right, we're going to head and move along here to our next student out at Bridges Elementary for their question for John Stallworth.
How do you deal with failure?
How do I deal with failure? I don't really look at it as a failure. I look at it as an opportunity that I've had, and I try to learn from it. And I internalize that and try to figure out if there was something I could have done differently that would have gotten different results. And I don't look around to see whose fault it was outside of myself. My first thing is to look at myself and to see what I did wrong. And I think that comes a little bit from watching film over the years. I watch myself on every play, and I figure out that whether I could have done better or what could I have done differently to get different results. And so that's the way I approach life. If I did not achieve my desired results, I will look inside and see what I could do different and learn from that going on to the next time. And I always believe there will be another opportunity.
So you talk about achieving those dream results. And I think one of the dream results of every person who puts on shoulder pads and straps on that chin strap and on their helmet is to be enshrined here in the Hall of Fame. Just to kind of put it in perspective, you get all these football players and only a certain amount of them, a certain percentage, get their bust put on display here in Canton. When you get inducted as a Hall of Famer, you get 3 iconic pieces, 2 of which that you have on right there. You get the Haggard gold jacket, you get the K Jewelers Ring of Excellence you have on your hand there. But kind of the most iconic piece is that bronze bust. So we're going to send it out to the Director of Youth and Education here at the Hall of Fame, Jerry Shockey, and he is standing right in front of your bust there, Mr. Stallworth. And he's going to talk a little bit about your career and why you have that bronze bust here in Canton, Ohio. So, Jerry, are you there?
Hey, Jake, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, we're joined by, obviously, the bronze bust of John Stallworth. But, students, I want to give you an idea of just how big of an honor it is to be enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Think about this just for a second. There have been over 300 million that have played the game at all levels throughout the game's history. There have been 5 million that have played it at the collegiate level. There have been about 29,000 people that have been paid to play, coach, officiate, or administrate the game of football. But there are only 326 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, with the class that we just announced with 8 new members this year. And so what you'll see is we're joined here by Mr. Stallworth's bust. Now, John Stallworth played for the Pittsburgh Steelers for 14 seasons from 1974 through 1987. Stallworth caught 537 passes for 8,723 yards and 63 touchdowns, all Steelers team records at the time of his retirement. A veteran of 6 AFC championships games and 4 Steelers Super Bowl triumphs, Stallworth was named All-Pro in 1979 and All-AFC in 1979-1984, also playing in 4 Pro Bowls. Stallworth, who scored the winning touchdown on a 73-yard reception in Super Bowl 14 against the Los Angeles Rams, holds the Super Bowl records for career average per catch at 24.4 and single game average of 40.3 yards in Super Bowl 14. He had 12 touchdown receptions in a string of 17 straight games with a reception in postseason play. He also held Steelers team records for career and single game season receptions, career reception yardage, and his 64 touchdowns scored, ranked second behind Franco Harris following his retirement in 1987. Stallworth led the AFC with a career high 1,395 yards gained on 80 receptions in 1984 when he was named the NFL Comeback Player of the Year. As you can tell, John Stallworth had a career well deserving of a bust here in Canton, Ohio. Jake, back to you.
All right, thanks, Jerry. So you went through all those stats and all those big moments in your career, Mr. Stallworth. So the question I like to ask is, what has been maybe the coolest part or the coolest moment you've had since being a Hall of Famer?
Since being a Hall of Famer, at this point I have 5 grandkids, and being able to take my grandkids to the hall and for them to see that bus and see the look on their faces is probably the coolest moment that we've had. Certainly, it's great to be inducted and to have the members of my family there and present to be a part of that. But since then, and seeing my grandkids grow up and to be of an age where they're knowledgeable to some degree, and to take them to the hall and to see that bus and see the look on their face, the smile on their faces that my granddad, my grandfather is a Hall of Famer.
Awesome. Awesome. So we got another question here from Facebook. Jill asks, what advice do you have for kids that dream of one day being a wide receiver in the NFL?
Put that maybe on the back burner of what you want to do and what you want to accomplish in your life. What you need to have on that front burner, to me, is to pursue an education, whether that in getting through high school and going on to college. Now, football can be a vehicle for you to have that college education paid for. So take advantage of that. But the first thing you want to do is you want to leave college with a degree, something that can't be taken away from you. A football career could end in a play. It could be the first play of your professional career. It could end after 14 years with an injury. But the ability to think and to move and to be and to educate yourself was always going to be there. So put that on the back burner. We talked earlier about commitment and to excellence. If wide receiver is there and that's what you want to be and you have the talent to do that, then pursue that. Commit yourself to doing the things that you need to do to make sure you're in the best condition that you can be, that your mind is sharp, and that you're not doing anything that's going to take away that sharpness of mind and that strength of body. Do the kind of things that you want to do and commit yourself to being the best you can possibly be.
All right, next question. We'll turn it over to those students right in front of you in Huntsville.
Yes. I was just wondering, we just went over how many people were actually in the Hall of Fame, and it's such a small number. And it seems like during your career, there's quite a few of y'all that were on that team that are in the Hall of Fame. And I guess my question is, playing for a guy like Chuck Noll and the experience that you had, and how important was he in sort of linking all of that together for the Steelers?
I think Chuck Noll was a key to us. For us during our time there, Chuck had a great ability to choose talented folks and to bring those folks together. The question has always been asked of whether we recruited and drafted players of a certain mentality, a certain drive, or did we recruit players and they came into our environment and they adapted themselves to what we needed to have. And I think probably a little bit of both. But Chuck was key because he kept us centered on what we had to do that day. We won 4 Super Bowls. We were viewed as one of the best teams in professional football for a long period of time. And people, when they played us, they were going to play their best. So we always had to be at our best. And Chuck was the guy that kept us centered on doing that kept us not looking too far ahead to the next game, but always look at the game that we had to play right then and right there. It kept us centered not on the hype that comes from being a Super Bowl champ, but kept us centered on that each and every day we had to prove ourselves to our teammates, to the people that we competed against, and we had to do that each and every day, and that challenged us to do that each and every day. So he was important to us in that regard. Chuck was never a guy that was going to give you a whole lot of praise. I mean, you could think you've just done something great and fantastic, and what you got from Chuck was a nod. And over the years of being associated with him, you would think, and the guys that played with me, you think if you got that nod, you had just you just got praised as much as anybody, that you have gotten just ooze and ooze of praise when all you got from this guy was just a nod. But he was key. Tremendous amount of respect for him and what he did and what he was able to accomplish during his time in Pittsburgh as a coach.
Awesome. Yeah. Mr. Noah was a great person for the game of football, definitely changed the way the game was played, and obviously that's reflected in what you see in today's NFL. So we're going to send it now out to Arizona to our next student there at Bridges Elementary for their question for Mr. Stallworth.
If you weren't in the NFL playing football, what career would you have chosen?
If I was not in the NFL, I would. My chosen profession, the one I always wanted to be in, is what I ended up doing after I left professional football, and to start my own business. That was my goal coming out of high school, to start my own business, to get an education and to start my own business. I actually went to college and played football because football paid for my education. My goal in going to Alabama A&M was not to become a professional football player, but was to educate myself and to prepare myself to start my own business. So football was a vehicle for me in that regard. So if I wasn't a professional athlete, I'd like to think I still would have been a businessman, and hopefully would have had some degree of success in that.
So outside your football career, your Hall of Fame career, and outside of your business world, you do have a foundation today that gives out scholarships to students who will be attending your alma mater, Alabama A&M. Do you have any big events that you host throughout the year that supports this foundation? And what does ultimately, when it boils down to, what does your foundation mean to you?
Well, our foundation we started several years ago affords us the foundation, an opportunity to help some young people go to continue their education. And we're expanding now. It's just not centered on Alabama A&M. It's Alabama A&M and other colleges within our state. It gives us an opportunity to help out. I was blessed to have enough talent to receive a scholarship, but I know that there are kids out there and young folks out there who may not run fast and may not jump high, but who deserve an opportunity to go to college and to change their lives and to better the lives of their families and their communities. And we're committed to doing just that, to helping those young folks to do that. Now, our big fundraiser every year is a golf tournament that we have right here in Huntsville, Alabama, to raise funds for that. We've been embraced by companies in Madison County and throughout the state of Alabama, and actually throughout the Southeast, to help us along the way. We've been able to grow an endowment well over $1 million that will continually help young folks to continue their education. But one of the things that we do in conjunction with that event, that golf tournament, is we have what we call a parents' party. All our sponsors come in, and we have some of our scholars to come in and talk about their experience with the Stallworth Foundation. And that is what we want our sponsors to see. Yeah, we want to get together, we'll have a good time, we'll play golf, but we want them to know this is why we're here, that we're here to help some young folks to continue, very deserving young folks, to continue their college education. And there's some very compelling stories associated with that. And we're filled with a great deal of pride to be able to do that, and feel blessed to be able to do that. And through the endowment, we hope to continue that for a long time.
Awesome. All right. I think we got time for one more round of questions. So we're going to turn it over to those students there in front of you in Huntsville, Alabama for another question.
How did it feel when you knew that you were playing your last game?
Say that again, sorry.
How did it feel when you knew that you were playing your last game?
I still think I got a game in me, you know. I didn't actually know my last game. I knew that I was getting to the end of my career, but my last season, I hadn't really made the decision not to play to retire. That's something that I considered in the off season, and then for the last few years that I played. Looking back on that, you know, and I wish I had a firmer grasp on that was going to be my last game, because I think I would have thought about everything a lot deeper in that last game. I would have embraced every aspect of that. I will tell you, though, that coming out of high school and after my senior year, last game my senior year, I was pretty sure that was going to be my last football game. I had not gotten any offers from any college to play, to come and play, to pay for my education. I hadn't gotten any offers at all. And we rode a bus, and we played our high school games in Tuscaloosa at the same stadium that the University of Alabama played. It was then Dennis Stadium, and it's now Bryant Dennis Stadium. We played there, and it was a rainy December Friday night, and I'm on the bus, and we're going to the game, and it's raining, and I'm looking around, and I'm trying to take in every little bit of that, because I thought that was going to be my last football game. I was blessed that it wasn't my last football game. But I wanted to embrace that. I believe that I wanted to embrace it because I thought that was a special time in my life. I don't know how many times you get an opportunity to come together with a group of men and to go through what we go through in training camp, every day in practice, and to try to build something that's special, and to come together and make a special time and win football games, and you get a chance to grow in that, and you learn how to get knocked on your butt and pick yourself up, and you learn how to pick the next guy up. You learn how to realize that people are dependent upon you to do your job, and your willingness to step up and do your job. It's a very special time, and it's a lot that we can learn from our participation in athletics, and I wanted to embrace that as much as I could coming out of high school. And so I paid attention to everything. I looked at the steps walking up and getting on the bus. I looked at the bus seat. I tried to remember every light that I saw on the way to the stadium. And we were 0-9 going into that game, and we won that very last game. And it remains a very special time.
I've had that moment in my life too. Now it was just at the high school level, but it was just a little bit harder to take off the helmet and the shoulder pads that last game. So can definitely know what you're talking about when it comes to that moment. All right, we're going to turn it over to our student out at Bridges Elementary School for another question.
What was your favorite subject in school?
We had a class in humanities, and I like math, but we had a class in the humanities where I got a chance to read a lot of stories about folks who did well, who were heroes to some degree within those stories, and I kind of always saw myself in that kind of role, the guy who came in at the last moment and to save the day. I kind of saw myself in that role. I thought in my time playing football as a receiver that I had opportunities to do that, to come in and come up with a big play to win the big game. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing that happen. I read a book and did a book report on in the 10th grade, I do believe, about a guy who went out for football, but before going out, he was overweight. He was quiet. He sat in the back of one of his classes, and he was a guy that was easy to overlook. And so he goes out for football, and he makes the team. And during the course of the year, he is transformed. Physically, he's transformed. Mentally, he's transformed. Spiritually, he's transformed. He becomes a different person, and without even realizing that, and come the last game of the season, without even realizing he's voted most valuable player on the team. So stories that kind of end like that we see a person who no one expected a whole lot of, who steps forward and kind of saves the day. Those kind of stories I enjoy, and I got an opportunity in the humanities class to talk about, not just read stories about that, but hear stories about that, So that turned out to be one of my favorite classes.
Thanks. That's a great question. So I got a list of stuff in front of me, and Jerry read off some of your on the field stats, but I want to read off some more of the off the field stats here. So you were inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2002, the Black College Football Hall of Fame in 2014, Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor in 2017, Alabama A&M Hall of Fame in 1995, Alabama Sports Hall of Fame in 1989. You're a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers all-time team, and the NFL Comeback Player of the Year in 1984. So you can say you had a pretty decent career there in the black and gold in Pittsburgh. What do all of those honors mean to you?
You know, I look at all of that, and certainly I enjoy having gotten those awards, but the most important thing to me has always been the value of the relationships that we were able to form along the way. I think back on 1 year, and a lot of guys have retired. The guys that I played with for a lot of years have retired, and in that particular year, I caught my 500th catch, and that was a milestone in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But certainly at a time when we weren't pass happy as far as the league was concerned, that was a milestone as far as the league was concerned. And I made the catch, and I looked around, and the guys that I was playing with weren't the guys that I kind of grew up with. We talked about the 4 guys that were part of my class that are in the Hall of Fame, and Webster and Lambert and Swan, Joe Green and Bradshaw, and Jack Lambert and Jack Ham. Those guys weren't there. And it didn't feel as significant as it would have been had they been there. That's the value of the relationships that I treasure. I think those things carry more weight in me and in my mind and in my spirit than all the awards that we have gotten over the years. That those relationships are still there. That I can go back and we can enjoy talking about the things that we were able to do as a team, and the things that we did off the field, and the things that we've grown into with our family and in our careers outside of football. The relationships, had it not, I think if I look back on those things and none of the relationships were there, I think it would be a lot less starry in my mind, a lot less glowing in my mind. But to think about the people that we were able to do those things with, it remains very important to me.
Yeah, we get that answer a lot. You know, one thing we like to talk about is kind of what do you miss most about stepping onto the field and playing in the NFL? And that's kind of the answer we get, is that they miss the brotherhood, they miss the locker room, they miss being around those guys every single day of their career. So it definitely goes to show how important relationships are, not only in football, but in any other place or any other organization that you're at. So we're going to wrap it up with one final question. And this is maybe my favorite question I ask. It's just kind of to hammer home to everybody watching today, especially the students who are watching, is if you could give these students watching today one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Well, I think it probably would go back to what I just said, that learn to appreciate the value of other people in your lives. Learn to appreciate what your mom and dad do for you every day. Learn to appreciate the value of having good, solid, strong relationship with family and with friends. And learn to treasure that and to appreciate that and to appreciate the depths of that and how that helps you along the way to becoming the person that you are. Sometimes we can get so tied up into to getting somewhere, to achieving some goal, that we disregard all the little things along the way and the relationships that were along the way. And I think if we learn to appreciate those things, it gives greater value to our lives and to our experiences.
I can't think of a better way to wrap up the program than that right there. So first, I want to thank you for participating in our event today, participating in the Heart of a Hall of Famer program. So with that, we're going to wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Heart of a Hall of Famer series with Gold Jacket, class of 2002 inductee John Stallworth. Mr. Stallworth, again, I want to thank you not only from from myself, Jerry, Nathan, and our youth and education department, but from the Hall of Fame as a whole, all the way up the president, David Baker. We appreciate you sharing your stories, and hopefully there was one student out there, one person out there who's able to take something away from your stories, from the things you've been throughout your football career, and apply it to their lives. We want to thank you for all you've done for the game of football, but more importantly, everything you've done for us at the Hall of Fame. The game of football especially wouldn't be like it is today without your impact and your influence. So thank you for all that you've done for us here at the Hall of Fame and everything you've done for the game of football. So with that being said, let's give Mr. John Stallworth one big round of applause to end today. Again, thank you for participating today, and hopefully we'll see everybody here at the Hall of Fame one day. And Mr. Stallworth, hopefully we'll see you here in August as we celebrate the class of 2019. So again, thank you everybody, and we'll see you guys all later.
Guys, just right quick before I let you go.